Hello, this is Brian Foster on February 24th, 2019. A happy Sunday at 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern Time, all time zones in between and around the world. We are bringing you another live stream on Kardec Radio and Kardec Facebook page. Please tell everybody about the Kardec Facebook page. You can see our live streaming. And you can also hear us live on Kardec Radio 24 hours a day. Well, not live. We have all sorts of programs. You can hear some people live at certain parts of the day. And then what they'll do, they'll play other programs on the other, whatever many hours there are during the 24-hour period. So you can get Kardec Radio on your iPhone or your Android phone, and you can listen to programs about Spiritism all you wish. I use it all the time. Again, you can just type in Kardec, Kardec, radio. And of course, and here is why we are here. And there's his name, Allan Kardec. And there he is right there, Allan Kardec. And you can also go to my site, nwspiritism.com. Click on his picture. You'll go to the EDICEI bookstore. You can find all of his books. Of course, you can find all of his books and also books by other Spiritist authors, such as Francisco C. Xavier, also known as Chico Xavier, Ivan Pereira, Divaldo Franco. You can find them also on Amazon if that's the way you would like to get your books. But of course, here they're actually a very good price. They're actually a better price than Amazon on the bookstore site. So again, you can go just click on this picture, and you can get to the bookstore site. And they have a lot of Spiritist books in English and actually other languages too. So I recommend that for everybody. So we are here talking about Spiritism. And Spiritism was brought to you by Allan Kardec. I just showed you the picture in the 1850s. And this was a wonderful revelation. This was actually what is known as the third revelation, the first being Moses coming down from the hill, and then Jesus Christ arriving as the second revelation. And Spiritism is the third revelation. And the third revelation, so why do we have these revelations? Many people believe in the complete divinity of the Bible, and that's fine. But what Spiritism tells us is that the spirit world only told the people at the time that they did. This is all the different books in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. They only told the people what they could understand and comprehend at the time of their level of their technology and their culture. Now, in the 1850s, we reached a next higher level plane of the culture, and now they've told us more. And actually, the Spiritism has told us so much more. Before, in most religions, where you go after death, what happens, the processes, the procedures of the spirit world, how you're reincarnated, how your life is set out, what you do in the spirit world. Are there jobs in the spirit world? Do you keep learning? Is heaven something you just lay around all day? All those questions are answered in the book, the Spirit's book. And then also the other one is a lot of the questions where you may not be certain of in the New Testament talks about all the different parables and exactly what it meant. So why did Jesus Christ talk in parables? Because he couldn't say exactly what he wanted to, because he knew people wouldn't understand. So he left a lot of hints. And now a lot of those hints in parables are explained by Spiritism. So what are we doing tonight? Well, tonight we're talking on verse 22, also chapter 22 in my book, How to Live. And this is all from a 24-verse poem by Andre Luiz. Very short. Chapter 22, or the verse 22, is fostering of tolerance. And what this whole poem did is it took a step-by-step how to act on earth, how to transform ourselves on earth so that we can be a better person. We can advance spiritually. And when you want to know what that means, advance spiritually, that's why, hi, Matthew. Hello to you. When you want to talk about advance spiritually, that's why the knowledge of Spiritism is so important, because it tells you what happens. What are the ramifications? Spiritism tells you about heaven and different levels of heaven and where you go. In Christianity, most of it is, okay, you live a good life, you're a good person overall. You don't have to be perfect, and you go to heaven. And in heaven, it's something there. You're there for the for all your immortality, right? You're there forever. Spiritism tells us why we are on earth. We are on earth because when you go to heaven, let's start from there. You go to maybe one of the levels of heaven of where you are on your spiritual ascension. And when you're in heaven, you can learn more. You can go up and up and up. And heaven isn't just a idle pastime all the time. Heaven is work, but it's work that you want to do. It's intellectually exciting, and you never stop learning. And again, you're immortal. And when you die, you are yourself. You have your same character, your same personality. Your spirit brain's has a lot more capacity, but you are basically your same personality. So what it tells us is that our job here is to ascend, is to remove the blemishes, the bad characteristics, the primitive emotions from ourselves, and replace them with love, charity, fraternity, and honesty. Right? That is why we are here. So it's more than just living a good, decent life, not hurting anybody, or retiring to some cave as a monk or a monastery. No, you also need to engage yourself, other people, and then really work to improve yourself and at the same time improving others. And one of those steps for improvement is fostering of tolerance. Now, what does that mean? And this is why I wrote this book, How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism, is to go through, okay, so each one of the stanzas of his poem, I try to interpret, what does that mean? And then how do you get there? And it's not easy because we're on verse 22 and they've already left me behind, as step by step. And I'm just trying on each of these. So it's no one's telling you this must do this to be perfect. It's something that you will try and build upon in life after life. We don't come here just for one life. We come here for multiple lives, maybe thousands of lives, could be millions of lives. I'm not sure, but I do know that we're all here, and hopefully we improve in each life. And improve meaning change your personality, right? Improve your personality. Don't talk bad about people. Don't, what I'm saying is, bad gossip. Don't cheat. Don't steal. Start following this, your conscience. Your conscience is that inside law library you have where you can interpret every event. And if you feel bad about doing something, if you think you're hurting somebody, then don't do it. Now, sometimes you may think you're hurting somebody, but that person kind of needs a little bit of focus and attention. Then your conscience will tell you, well, you may not like doing it, but it's something necessary to help somebody else. So always kind of think these things. Meditate if you're not sure about things. Meditate through them. Now, let's get to the point. Fostering of tolerance. So tolerance. It sounds so easy, doesn't it? You love all, you smile upon everyone, and be kind to those who you meet. It's very simple in theory and harder in practice. It's not difficult as far as controlling your speech or gestures, right? But the challenging part is your emotions welling up inside you. The spirit Andre specifically mentioned this because he knows full well that as a human, we have built up within our instincts a predilection to strongly desire conformity. That's why we have tribes. That's why we have people stick together, right? And it makes sense. It was actually, this urge was beneficial once upon a time when we were huddled together in tribal groups and we were forced to defend our territory and our lives at a moment's notice. But as time went on, civilization had a warrior class, which also promoted conformity. Those armies which possessed the most discipline usually emerged victorious. So hence, our instincts, which are brought over with us in life after life, just like our conscience, are a powerful force. As with any power, it can be used for good or bad. It all depends on how we shape it. This is precisely why we are on the earth this moment. Our job is to break down the old accumulated habits, which made us successful in a primitive world, and now we're in a world of atonement, and develop new habits, which will enable success in a true civilized planet, where hate, envy, war, and inequality is greatly diminished or completely eradicated. In this new globe, which according to Spiritism, the planet Earth is aiming to arrive in the future, only those who have transformed themselves into mature and civilized beings will be allowed entry. Oh, hello, Rosalind. Everyone else will be sent in their subsequent lives to a planet similar to Earth as it is now, a planet of atonement, where one lives paying for past debts and attempting to cast off detrimental attributes. On the other hand, those who have learned how to foster tolerance will be invited to a planet of regeneration, a place where our lives will be a paradise as compared to our present circumstances. And the Earth is on track to become a planet of regeneration. I know many, Spiritism tells us we're in that stage of where we are starting to prepare for that. We're starting that. And I've also heard from other people who are spiritualists, not spiritists, and they feel the same thing. They feel something is happening, and that all is coming together in a place where we are going to start learning. Now, I don't think it's going to happen today or tomorrow or even in the next 10 years. Actually, I wrote a book, The 1,000-Year March. I think it could be 1,000 years, but remember, it's just been 2,000 years since Jesus Christ came to earth. So I think another 1,000 years is reasonable, but other people think it will come quicker. So I'm trying to look at the long term. I do know is what they've said in the spirits book is when we get past 50% of people who are actually truly spiritually mature, right? Then you don't have to be perfect. You're not Mother Teresa, but at least you start following your conscience. You start treating people well. You know that wealth is something you need to support yourself, support your family, but it's not something you take advantage or cheat people in order to accumulate it. Right now, I remember, I forgot where this was said, but it's about 30% of people will rise to heaven from the planet Earth. Those are people who are good and decent in their everyday lives. They don't have to be saints. But once we get another, that much more, right? Once we start people coming and reincarnating, and of course, then also spirits say more and more people reincarnating who are truly good people, spiritually mature. It will become more and more. And as those people become examples to others, we will start having that effect. So it's not that straight line. I think it's more of a hockey stick of us getting to become a planet of regeneration. Now, let's talk about what is, there's Crystal. Thank you. Oh, pass on to the team. Oh, thank you, Crystal. What is tolerance? So let's talk about that. The Spirit Manual explains the importance of tolerance and the being of tolerance. This is what Emmanuel says. Emmanuel was the spiritual guide for Chico Xavier. He says, tolerance is the foundation of all true progress, just as all parts of a machine work together so that there may be the production of certain benefits. So all blessings of nature are a series of manifestations of this blessed virtue that inspires true brotherhood. Tolerance, however, is not a superficial concept, but a living reflection of understanding, a purity of the soul. It conjures the feeling of hope, patience, and letting go of all evil. To insist that others think as we do would be to demand that the world adapt itself to our whims. Our obligation is to adapt ourselves with dignity to the world, with the firm purpose of helping it. Let me stop right there. Remember what he said, to insist that others think as we do would be to demand that the world adapt itself to our whims. Haven't we seen that in our culture? You must think like I do. You must. It's almost like Orwell 1984, where there's right think and bad think and good think. We are so intolerant of people. We should love everybody, no matter what they think. Yes, intolerance is kind of a power of control ourselves, right? That's exactly. And I truly agree with that. So, what was I? Okay, so let me go on with what Emmanuel said. Emmanuel said, divine providence reflects wise and active tolerance everywhere. God does not require that the seed immediately produce after its kind. God gave it time to germinate and grow, to bloom and bear fruit. God does not ask the stream to quickly blend its course towards the awaiting ocean. He offers the stream pathways through the soil and the time needed to finish its course. Likewise, tolerance is needed between one soul and another. It is important that we do not assume any attitude of violence. No attitude of violence. The roughness of an impulsive person, the irritation of an uneducated patient, the claw of an animal, the thorn of a rose, all represent the natural signs of an evolutionary stage in which they are found. To fight with hatred is to bring about destruction. He who commits an offense attracts evil to himself. This being the case, evil is only really evil to the one who commits it. To retaliate on the same irrelevant principle is to assimilate its poison. It is essential to treat ignorance with the same loving care that is employed with treating a wound. If we bruise it without mercy, it would be like transforming a curable case into a hopeless one for a lack of adequate treatment. Therefore, above all else, tolerance is a complete release of all evil and a continual service in goodness. That's what Emmanuel said. Very wise words. No violence. Understand his other points of view. And then we talked about, God in the spirit world allows the stream to meander towards the ocean. That's what we are, right? We are meandering towards the ocean. Why are we meandering? What does he mean by that? This is where free will comes in. We have free will to be as good or bad or ignorant or smart as we want. We can go through many, many lives parking. Spiritism say parking is when you don't improve in very many, like in life after life. Of course, I'm sure I've been told I have done. So now, hopefully, the more you learn about Spiritism, you can learn that, no, it's not a good thing. We should improve at least a little bit in every life. It would be very important to us. So, being aware of performing good in as many avenues as possible is a notable goal. To get there, one's mind must be expanded. Attention must be raised for opportunities for service, and predilections built up from past and current lives should be analyzed if they present barriers to tolerance. The spirit Neo Lucio recounts a story from his book, psychographed by Francisco C. Xavier. The book's title is Jesus in the Home. Very good one. You can find it on the EDICI bookstore with a picture of Allan Kardec on my site, nwspiritism.com. The book contains many stories of the conversation that Jesus held with his disciples. One story in particular is pertinent to tolerance and acceptance. Jesus told the gathering about a time when the earth was in deep ignorance. God sent a messenger of knowledge. The goal of this person was to spread the reality of the spirit realm, to bring purpose and a path of behavior to the populace. When he arrived on earth, he became intrigued with the literature he read and in discourse with other wise men. He became so focused at his preferred intellectual pursuit that he ignored everything else. In fact, he deliberately distanced himself from the common people, thinking they were too ignorant to even begin to understand his message. Seeing that his first messenger did not perform the duty assigned to him, God sent another. This time he selected a doctor, someone who would directly help the poor and downtrodden. When the doctor arrived, he became fascinated with his storeroom of herbs and medicines, and he thought only to treat those who could pay handsomely for his services. Next, God sent another wise man, but he became a warrior who only used the meek and poor for his own purposes. Another was sent who became a musician who only wished to play for important audiences, only those who could afford to pay for his concerts. Finally, the Almighty sent a messenger of love to the human race. With great mercy, this messenger was able to reach the four corners of the world. He felt compassion for the teacher, the doctor, the warrior, and the musician, to the same extent that he felt mercy for the misfortune and the primitiveness of the crowds. Determined to work in God's nature, he became a diligent servant to all. He began to work for the common good and identifying with the people to whom he had come to serve. He forgave infinitely and repeated the same effort or the same lesson 1,000 times. So he's saying we must let people be whatever they want to be and go through our pathway, keep learning and serving. Yes, exactly, Gabriel. And, and then let me go off on a tangent here for a second. And, that's kind of how Spiritism, right? Spiritism, we don't sit on the street corner and say, oh, come on, here, talk about Spiritism or you won't be saved. No, it's like, here's knowledge. And if you want to pick it up, you can. And again, when you're talking with friends or whatever, you don't lecture them and say, "Well, you're doing everything wrong. You don't know what you're doing. You're here to learn, right?" You wait until there's an opportunity. I'll talk to people who are friends, and I kind of give them little clues, saying, well, I think next life you'll be better, and that's what spiritists believe. And but then if they don't ask anything else, I just drop it. Right? It's information. It's you let people. God has a plan for each one of us. That's why you should never want revenge for what somebody did to you, because it's all going to be solved. Everyone is going to have karma. Karma works perfectly, right? It's all going to work out for each person. They will learn what they need to learn. You don't have to help them. You don't have to punish anybody. That doesn't mean you don't have to lock somebody up for stealing. Yes, that could be part of their karma, is to be in prison. But that's why you don't have to force it on anyone, right? If they're open to it, God bless you, you can talk to them. If they're not open to it, then I just don't even pursue it. So let me finish what the story was. So this person, he began to work for the common good, identifying with people to whom he had come to serve. He forgave infinitely and repeated the same effort or same lesson 1,000 times over. That's what I just said. If he was humiliated or persecuted, he tried to see the offense as a beneficial challenge to his ability to perform regenerating deeds so that he could bear witness to the trust in the Father who had sent him, in order to love his brothers and sisters and struggle without holding back. Many times he was compelled to pray for help from heaven when faced with the claws of slander and sarcasm. Nevertheless, he found in the lower manifestations of human nature even more reasons to dedicate himself with more fervor to better his fellow beings, who had yet to come to know the grandeur and sublimity of the benevolent Father who had given them life. So, this is the true meaning of why Jesus washed the feet of his disciples. He sought to convey that he who serves must think of themselves as the most humble, the most tolerant. To be tolerant doesn't mean to put up with people. It goes further than that. It means to love them, even in the face of unrealistic views, which we see all the time, ideas and preconceptions. It means to be patient with the lack of learning and progress. It means that one must be willing to keep trying, even in the face of repeated failures. It may not work for a friend, it may not work in this life. It may have to work in the next life. For the truth may be that some people will only be cognizant of reality after several or more lives. But fear not. Those seemingly inconsequential encounters will lay dormant as seeds which will sprout unexpectedly at the right moment. But this is difficult. I know tolerance is difficult. It goes against our nature. If there weren't any people being tolerant, it would be easy, right? If there's nobody else, you'd be tolerant of yourself. But this isn't the case, for we must learn to live with younger, less mature souls. It's part of our required learning. We'll need to do that as we rise in the spiritual ascendancy. We will be on this planet or other planets working with more ignorant, less knowledgeable souls and spirits. So many spiritually and psychologically immature humans are unsure of their conduct, belief systems, and even basic civilized interactions between people. They lack knowledge and certainty of who they are and their approach to life. Hence, they are insecure and vulnerable to bad and ignorance influences. Happens all the time, does it not? We see that all the time. Unfortunately, the most pervasively negative influences are all around us. Media, television, the internet, good and bad for each of those. Our current culture looks up to no defined, to no defined moral authority or code or conduct. The only badge of distinction is he who yells the loudest or who can define themselves as the greatest victim, which many people are calling a victim Olympics, which I thought is a great deal. Don't think of yourself as a victim on earth. You are put in the place, the culture, the economic strata, the country where you need to learn your lessons, right? Do the best you can when and whatever you're given. All these are truly and totally unproductive behaviors in a quest to ascend spiritually. The Spirit Joanna succinctly describes this vast group. This is what she says about individuals who really don't know what they want. This is what he says. Such individuals do not really know what they want, where they are headed, or how to behave, for they are in a sleep state which has flashes of lucidity but soon returns to numbness. Since they are so concerned about others, they forget themselves, disparaging themselves or being aggressive, whereas they should simply awaken to their own. Oh, so Gabriel says, I'm needing tolerance a lot. Thanks for this class. I'm really doing this reflection. I take my 4 children to, the Federation of Spiritism in, must be Sao Paulo, since they were babies. But my older daughter's 18, doesn't want to go there anymore. Well, yes. And same thing with my son. So my son is now, and I don't want to talk about him too much because he won't like that. He was the same way. Yes, good people make the victims take. Yeah, that's true. But that's why when they're teenagers, if they want to walk away, I did not force him to be part of our group. Is our God at home, right? And he didn't even want to do that after a while. It's okay. I'm not going to force you. But now, later on, he's starting to ask me questions. So you know, if they want to walk away for a bit, God bless them. But I tell you, the seed, you're planting the seed. You're doing what your parents should do. But I tell you, it will come back. They'll reflect upon it. And then as they see real life, right? Because all they see now is when they're, teenagers, they see the family life. And of course, they know better than anybody else. I mean, I did. I'm sure you did at that age. I don't know how your parents could live because they were so stupid, right? But this will get into them. And I tell you, now I'm seeing the seeds like 3 or 4 years later. He's asking me questions that is showing like, oh, okay, maybe his dad wasn't as dumb as he thought he was, right? So anyway, I'm just saying, be patient. Don't force it on them, but just kind of, as you know, teenagers, especially for boys, they'll communicate with you, 2 or 3 times a year, depending on the kid, and then you can talk to them. Anyway, that's kind of, what I've seen. That's a point of view of one, right? So I'm sure there's people that know better than I do. So, where was I? Okay. So we're talking about people don't want what they really want, right? They just want what the group wants. So this is what Joanna D'Angelo says. Since they are so concerned about others, they forget themselves, disparaging themselves or being aggressive, whereas they should simply awaken to their own reality and that of their environment. However, they become robot-like in their torpor and let themselves be led by the rules imposed on them. Boy, we see that all the time, don't we? She knows so much. Even though these do not meet their personal demands and needs, or they follow traditions that are irrelevant to their objectives, affected by conditionings that are results of previous inheritances, and have no connection with their way of being. Thus, they let themselves be influenced by sensationalism of mass media or suffocated by their social group. They would like to be active members of the group, which rejects them, or they exile themselves by not grasping their existential role. Real awakening thus becomes indispensable for them by reflecting on their own aspirations and what is happening around them, so they may be at peace with their human context and be free without narcissistic exhibitionism or depressive timidity. Oh, thank you, Gabriel. It's my pleasure. Anytime anyone wants to ask me a question on these live comments, just do it and I'll go off on a tangent because this is really, I love answering questions and doing what little help I can do, and hopefully it just makes you think, and then you think of something probably much better than what I did, but hopefully you can just get the wheels turning. So what Joanna D'Angelo tells us about these people is that most type of people we find it hard to be tolerant of are locked into their situation described by Joanna D'Angelo. They've hitched themselves to a set of false values and strive to find a familiar acceptance to make themselves feel worthy. And boy, if that's not true, as Gabriel's asking, with teenagers, right? Teenagers are looking to latch upon something. And of course, they always, they seem to latch like the worst thing they could latch on, right? But that's all part of learning, right? It's sometimes it's good to do stupid things because then you learn. So we've all been there, right? And we have to understand that their convoluted belief system is not built upon logic, but upon emotion. They are slaves to their own insecurity and seek freedom in groupthink. They believe that they are deeply introspective, but in reality, they live in a shadow world full of the lessons and experiences of past lives. We've all been there, right? It is a part of the great trek of spiritual maturity to learn what self-realization really is, to question the precepts of society, and to be brave enough to follow the reasoning of our own logic, to discover the full panorama of the spiritual and physical universes. To be forbearing means that we identify with those in doubt and we lend what wisdom we can to help their journey. All the while, keeping in mind the spirit world will supply the stimuli necessary for them to grow. We only need to lend what is small assistance we are able to. So how do you start, right? So how do you start being tolerant? So first you need to enable tolerance in your own family. Acquiring the tendency towards tolerance is the most effective when one is young. Hence, the Spiritist doctrine should be introduced to those young, pliable minds. So as they grow, they'll understand the true condition of life on earth. The Spirit Joanna explains how to foster the propensity for compassion and love for our offspring. This is what she says. So, it is the duty of all parents to enlighten their children about the vicissitudes present in our evolutionary path. Edifying conversations about the divine justice, about the moral commitments that have been taken by all who find themselves reincarnated, and also the trials and testimonies that everyone must go through are of high moral and spiritual significance for the healthy formation of children's personalities. To demonstrate that such occurrences are perfectly normal and never to suggest that they are punishments established by a God who would find pleasure in seeing his creatures suffer merely because they are still unequipped to act correctly. That is the paramount duty of every parent, not patient. When by any chance in the family constellation there is an example of atonement, it must be transformed in precious teaching, not only to the spirit who is undergoing it, but also to other members who must join their hearts in order to attenuate the suffering of the one who is in need of help. Such measure develops in everyone involved in courage and respect to life, erasing fears and diluting illusions about life in the body, which is nothing but fragile. So this same approach with a wider circle of family and friends helps establish the broader view of life, that life and the arc of multiple lives must be seen in context as stepping stones from one platform of knowledge to the next. We never stop learning. We are always given tasks and homework through the trials awaiting us. And that's what's so important. It is you need to know that, and tell your children. That's what I've told mine. Good things are going to happen. Bad things are going to happen in your idea, but never think. And I can't tell you how many emails I get as saying, "Why is God punishing me?" Right? And I keep telling you, God does not punish. It's like the child who goes to school and says, "I don't want to go to school today." And why are you punishing me by making me go to school? Well, you send that child to school because you know that child must become civilized. If you don't, you are not doing your duty as a parent. That's all that's happening to us. Now, us here is like the child who cries because you made him go to school. At the moment, you are the worst parent ever. You are horrible. But we as the parent know we're doing this with love, and it's necessary for the advancement of the child. There's no difference in what the spirit world is doing for us. We are not ever being punished. We are being taught. Now, in our translation of what's happening to us, it is horrible. And usually, but we've in some of these hard trials that people go through are only there because they never learned from the more easier lessons. But would you want an uncivilized child? No. And does the spirit world want an uncivilized spirit who will never become helpful in the spirit world, who will never achieve anything? No, because as you go higher and higher in the spirit world, you have more and more power, more and more responsibilities. And the nice thing, the wonderful thing, the miraculous thing about this is your job and what you want to do becomes just much more exciting as your power grows. You become, you'll lead whole races. You'll design evolutionary paths for whole planets. It becomes miraculous. So We need to learn that each one of us, everybody we see, is at a different level of maturity and knowledge. Therefore, disparity exists between humans. Some are born with great wisdom, ready to sprout forth, and others are just beginning to learn right from wrong. All will eventually reach their destination to perfection. But in the meantime, each will experience vastly different sets of tribulations, each according to their educational needs. Hence the calls for toleration by the spirit realm. Andre Luiz reminds us of the disparity of humans on earth. While the spirit world loves us all equally, each of us has been assigned a customized curriculum intended to promote our transformation from a primitive spirit to one who will ascend to the highest spheres of heaven. Christ understood the need to reach out to everyone. His disciples and the populace of his time were amazed that he dined and fraternized with publicans and known sinners. Publicans, according to the definition of the time, were hated tax collectors. No wonder they hated him. The worst of the worst, for they forcibly gathered money from people in every manner. What was even more notable is that Jesus accepted Matthew, a publican, into his tight circle of disciples. So now how do we start getting tolerance into us, into our heart? So setting the stage for tolerance is a constant battle. To appear calm and benevolent to the world, we must be peaceful internally. The Spirit Manual gives us insight to this problem. Educating the sight, hearing, taste, and impulses represents the primordial foundation for constructive peacefulness. We usually hear, see, and feel according to our inclinations and not according to what is real. Reinterpret certain pieces of information according to our inner disharmony. Yes, like the IRS. Exactly, Matthew. Rather than the good intentions in which they were initially set. We observe situation and events with the light or darkness infuses our mind. We feel with the reflection our chaos we have instilled in our own understanding. For this reason, serenity must envelop our steps as much as possible as we face the conflicts that surround us in our present circumstances. Without calmness, it is impossible to discern and to work for the good. Without peace inside of us, we'll never know the reach and the realms of true peace. So what did he say? Achieving inner peace can't be bought. It is not a rote prayer or chant. It is a climb of dedicated study and gradual inner transformation, and it must be accomplished on your own terms. No one can describe you with perfection, only you. No one knows what are the hidden corridors or primitive impulses that need to be swept away, only you. Therefore, the need to fully understand why you're on earth, where you are spiritually and materially, and where do you wish to go are all questions that must be answered. Even starting on this journey will bring real benefits. Stress will be reduced and harmony restored. Where darkness and foreboding reigned, light will cleanse. Events on the physical plane won't hold the importance they once had. I tell you, I've seen it all the time. When something happens, and now that I'm learning more and more about spiritism, it's like, okay, yeah. I mean, just a while ago, somehow, someone, I don't want to say anything bad, but somehow we lost, 2,500, right? And we feel that was not fair, but that's okay. Just write it off. It's just money, and hey. Who knows? In a previous life, I may have owed that person something, or I might have taken money from someone, and now that's my lesson to learn. So I didn't let it affect me. If 15 years ago, I would have just taken all my time thinking, oh, I hate that person. How can I get revenge? How can I punish that person? Right? I would have just been a tight ball of stress. Now it's like, okay, well. Okay, I just learned that lesson, and I'm not going to worry about that person. It's as Spiritism tells you, you actually feel more sorry for the criminal than the victim. The victim, as you're going through your trials and tribulation, you're actually learning something, and you are atoning for what you've done wrong in the past. The poor person who is the criminal is actually gathering bad karma and will have to go through subsequent lives or in this present life have to go through trials and tribulations to help remove that primitive emotion and help them begin to learn to follow what? To follow their conscience and their instincts. That conscience, I cannot say this enough, that conscience is so important that we start listening to it. It is a wonderful thing. And I tell you, as you listen to it, and as you follow your conscience, and then as you go through, and you go through this poem in my book, How to Live Inner Peace Through Spiritism, and you don't even have to do this, just read about Spiritism, and then learn to forgive. As Jesus said, forgive 70 times 7, right? It really, selfishly, it helps you first. It doesn't help the other person. It really helps you more than anybody else. And that's why we have to grow spiritually. We have to be, Spiritism tells us selfishness is the root, really, of most ill will and evil. But we have to be, as also said, we have to be somewhat prideful and a little bit selfish as we learn and improve ourselves. And that's beneficial, right? We have to sometimes focus on ourselves. And kind of the conundrum, the counterproductive, intuition is sometimes the more you focus on yourself, really, you end up focusing on everybody else. And I've seen that happen for me. The other day I was, I've written about this where in one of the earlier chapters is you have to be aware of your surroundings. And, when you see things, you help people you can. And what I've done so many times is I'm the person, like when I walk to work, right? I get off the ferry and I walk to work. And I'm just like auto program. I don't see anything left and right. And I just kind of go. And I've tried to get myself so I can be aware, right? I can be aware of my surroundings and my environment and not just concentrate on one thing. You need to do these things, different levels, but you need to have, the ability to go from one to the other. So finally when I start walking to the ferry or from the ferry, instead of just being deep into thinking about work or after work, I'm trying to notice people. I'm trying to look at their situation. Did someone just drop something? I help pick it up or whatever. It's the more you can transform yourself, you're actually helping other people, and you're actually helping your family too, because then instead of you coming home and someone's saying something and you're not really ready to hear it, right? You make yourself, okay, you let yourself be ready to hear it, even though it's not when exactly you want to hear something. You let it happen because you're able to switch your concentration, right, rapidly without instilling negative emotions in yourself, like, oh, I got to listen to somebody. If you can do that, that is a huge step. If you can do that, that is a huge step. If you can listen to people, even when you don't want to, and just, okay, calm yourself down. This is something important. I can help. You can't believe how your stress just starts going away. This inner peace, you become much healthier. You're happier. You're in your family. They may not notice it externally, but they'll notice it internally, and they'll have memories of you long after you're gone, and they'll think of how you treated them in every circumstance with patience and love versus what you may have been before. So that's the way to do it. There was a funny conversation that someone told me that their wife heard at work. He was at work and they're working in these cubes, kind of like I do, where you can hear everybody else, and they could tell there was a father talking to his daughter, and he goes, oh, you don't want to clean your room? Well, go ask your mother if you can clean your room. And then he waited a little bit and goes, oh, your mother doesn't want to clean your room? Oh, that's too bad. Well, go ask your sister. So, it's just the fact that everyone was like laughing at this time, because then she came back and says, well, my sister doesn't want to clean my room. He goes, well, that's terrible. I guess that just leaves you. They just said it was a perfect treatment of rationally talking to a child. Of course, I love children, but they'll spend more time saying why they shouldn't have to do something, and I've done the same thing, than actually doing something they should do, right? That's just the nature. But he handled that so calm and understandingly. Like, okay, well, here's your options. But then, of course, she found out that no one else wanted to clean her room just, because she didn't want to. So it's a good lesson, and it was handled so well. Yes, yeah, I'm trying to listen more to people and relate them as I talk to them. I concluded not only helps them, but me. Exactly, Matthew. So you're seeing exactly the effects of listening and the fostering of tolerance. So these are great things that and then you're helping them, because then you're making them feel better. As Spiritism also says, giving to charity and giving to people doesn't mean money, right? It means your time, good advice, or just a shoulder to cry on. That's really more important than anything else. So, is there any other questions? If not, I think we've come to the end of the fostering tolerance. Again, I want to remember everybody, remember, I forget it, is tell your friends, share this live streaming on Facebook to other Facebook groups, tell your friends about Kardec Radio, and also go to my site. You can get on my YouTube channel. I will post this to my YouTube and my BitChute channel, so you can see this later. And I post a lot of other videos, like 5, 4, 3 minute, 6 minute videos on different aspects of Spiritism. I also have many videos that have been translated to Portuguese that go back to people who speak Portuguese. And so remember, it all started with here. And as I say all the time, this book, you can find this in PDF. Just look up Allan Kardec PDF. You'll find actually all his books on PDF. It's wonderful. And then, so remember that. And then please, if someone needs help, please help them. And, if you can put Spiritism and talk about, you can go to Spirit's book. Oh, Gabriel, I have a marvelous week. Many blessings. And then Glacia says, parenting is not easy. However, I am feeling encouraging right now. Thank you. I wonder how we're not supposed to engage to the anger that these people have. Yes. I know it is not a simple thing, is it? Not at all. And then, I also want to link you to an audiobook of this. That's good. That's good, Matthew. And yes, so the anger that these kids easily express most of the time, it is so hard. It's almost like a smartphone is like putting a nuclear weapon in the hands of a teenager. They just get, and it's just the worst thing. And so I recommend parents regulate that one very carefully. I know sometimes it's impossible. Not that I was successful at it, but this culture is a tough one to raise children. I'm not going to lie about that, because of the influences, and the influences are not ones of, we should be good and spiritual. No, we should be intolerant of everybody. And it's good to, it's good to mutilate your face and your body, all those things. I don't want to be too prejudiced, but, come on. It's really difficult, and it's not easy being a parent. And God bless everyone who is a parent and who are helping other people. Anyway, I want to say good night to everyone, and hopefully see everybody here next week. I will talk to you all later. Bye-bye.